community, welcome to Blender. I can hear myself. There you go. Hola community, welcome to Blender Today, live streaming from home today with so many news. We have news in all departments pretty much. We have cycles news, we have sculpting news, we have mesh news, we have geometry news, we have assets news. Today when I was setting the name for this episode, I was torn between two titles. One of them is the news that you are already reading about sculpting and vector displacement maps, which are things that people have been waiting forever. But also the wait, there are hearts. What is that? This is so cool. A bit distracting, but it's so nice. People are like, how do you guys do that? Anyway, thank you for the hearts and the 100% and the stuff you're sending. I hope the news, the other news was are around assets, because I think it's what was added to the asset browser and assets included in Blender itself. It's just crazy, because it is literally a before and after in how Blender ships in general. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we are streaming live. We're going to be trying to answer some questions from the thread that was made here by Barf Garbage. Thank you, Barf, for making it. And the other news that I have and that I was asked about, I was asked for by our Blender store team, was to let you know that there are new t-shirts. There is one in particular that is like super new. This is the one about the Blender streetwear line about the tiger or sculpting, made by Navia Groff, who also made the same designs, the similar designs for the one with the skater boy with the long beard and skating on curves, but also the some other ones that you recognize, like the Noodle Monster is a new option that it's in purple. This used to be green, and the old Import BPY is also available. Yeah, I don't. Oh, and the Eat, Sleep, Blend, Repeat. Some people have been asking about that when I'm here wearing it. That also has arrived. Okay, and the old cube. The default cube. Okay. Other than that, there is also for female, by the way, it's a unisex and female sizes. The model here is a kind of more female looking, but it's not only that. Other big news is that we have Blender 3.5 beta. You probably have noticed if you go to builder.blender.org, it's that you will see here that there is a yellow little indicator for 3.5, which is now beta. 3.6 is now alpha. So many of the features that I'm showing today are either on 3.5 or on 3.6. Everything that is in 3.5, it's obviously in 3.6. Well, not obviously. Some people sometimes ask if it's also like everything that's on 3.5 is also on 3.6. People also ask if the fixes that are done in the LTS releases like 3.3 are also in 3.5 and 6. And yes, that's always the case. Everything is like also, you're gonna see 293.15 release candidate. That's an LTS release that is coming on Wednesday this week. So plenty of releases. The 3.5 beta that I shall show you here has a cute little render by Nicole Morena. She was at the Blender conference. She had a presentation there, and she was even part of the podcasts we did from the conference. So we're pretty happy to have her be part of the Blender Splash family. So that being said, we're going to see what is new in Blender as of today. So I can mention I have asset browser, assets, constraints, curves, site, like all kinds of updates. So buckle up, chill, relax. I'm gonna see what is new here. This keeps popping up. I think I'm gonna put it off screen for a moment. Like I'm gonna try to leave the chat, but I'll just leave that off screen because it is a bit distracting. But it's nice. Thank you for the love. I hope that makes this makes more people find the stream later. Other than that, let's see. So animation. Yes, there is some updates in animation. So the frame channel, or like the channel dropdown, is getting new operators in the animation editors, the graph editor and the dope sheet. So the commit goes as follows. Add frame channel operators. When animating, it is often useful to frame the graph editor and dope sheet to whatever frames are in a given channel. So like pressing the dot in the node editor frames all the nodes into one view. So this patch adds the option to frame on selected channels or frame on whatever channel is under the cursor. Nice. If a preview range is set, it will only focus on the keys in that range. It supports F-curves and keyframe data. Frame to selected is called with right-click, frame selected channels, or frame selected channels in the channel menu, or the shortcut we all know, dot in the numpad. Also, it should also be in the for people without the numpad. In my case, it's a great thing to be in the UI team and using a smaller keyboard, because I find a lot of inconsistencies. There are things that I couldn't do before. Actually, I remember when I was working here on a render that I could, and I still don't know how to zoom in and out. In the image editor, I added a shortcut for center view, zoom in, zoom one, twice as large. Those shortcuts are only available in the numpad, but not in the regular key map. So it's always good to have, variety. Okay. What keyword is that? It's a keychron, 65% keychron. I'm really happy with it. Next, related to this, related to the view, it's this comment by Christoph. I don't know if you notice, but sometimes in the, well, not every time, in the list of channels in the dope sheet editor or in the graph editor, if you hold middle click and then go up and down, you could go off screen way too much, even when there's nothing in view. So this has been fixed, so it doesn't go so much out of the view. So you could end up with this, like where there is nothing, and now you have. You can only go that far. Other than that, I think that's it for the animation side of things. Let's switch into Asset Browser. So okay, Asset Browser got a bunch of changes. First, small ones, just like UI stuff. Add a separator line and icon padding for the import method menu. That's a small one. So okay, so this is 3.6, by the way. If you just change and you want to get your settings from 3.5 or 3.4 or whatever, you can press in the load 3.5 settings button, which is a very flaky UI because it checks for your settings and no UX actually. But if you do anything here and you save your settings, it will find those and then it will never show this button again. It's not great. It's not great. It's on my longest to do forever, but I think we should fix that with profiles or something in like when the Blender apps project moves on. Okay, so the asset browser. Oh, but if I show you now, I'm gonna spoil you about the other changes. Okay. Padding. Also, import method menu has been hidden for essentials. A lot of information that you still don't know exactly what is that. Okay, what is import method? Okay, actually import method is the new name for the import type. Type is a weird word for this context because the method was if you could link, append, or append and reuse, for example. In this case, type is not really accurate. Method. So what is all this? Well, it's part of a number of changes that were done in the asset browser. So one of them, it starts in the preferences. So you may remember the UI for the list of the asset library, which was a bit confusing to say the least. So, okay, let's go to the task, to the big task. Okay, yeah, it was a bit confusing because it was basically a box with a long field, and then it was like a UI that is not really common in Blender. So now it's using the UI list, so you can actually get all the benefits from it. So you add, it's more familiar. You can see all the libraries that you have at a glance. You can scroll much more easily. You can set the path, the import method, and add and remove from here without having to learn a new UI. But also you can search, because in these UIs you can search for free. So that's pretty cool. The next improvement, and also here you can see the import type is now called method, and is now a popover in the well, when I show you, you're gonna see it in a bit. Another big UX improvement is that Blender will now show you all the assets by default instead of just the current file ones. So when you open a new asset browser, you see everything at a glance. Because it could happen also, especially if you didn't have any custom user pref library added, you would immediately see an error. And it was so annoying. Well, as a UI guy, to open an editor and just immediately getting an error, not great. It's like it's not my fault, Blender. Well, that will be fixed with what I'm about to show you now. Is that oh wait, I need to mention this, that there is a risk that when you open the file browser, the asset browser, it will freeze for a moment because it has to build the library cache, and it should happen maybe the first time you open a new Blender, like a new version of Blender 3.5 or 6. They should be stored and saved in your drive. Okay, now the real deal. Blender, and I should go full screen for this because it's a major event. For the first time ever, if you don't count matcaps, HDRIs, and no, that's about it, Blender for the first time ever comes with bundled assets. But Pablo, is that making my Blender big and bulky and full of like bloated? Is it bloatware now? Is it gonna become like all those other software that are like multi-gigabytes and you only use like a... No. Well, I mean, it is in a way, but these are built-in modifiers. Okay, let's go in parts. So Blender now comes with an essentials, an asset library that is called essentials. So it's things that are gonna come built in Blender, and they are meant to be to help you get started, or to help you with setups that that would be a bit more complex to make on your own. It's just to make things easier, basically, especially when it comes to hair. The first iteration, which this is part of 3.5, is gonna be hair. So if you remember in 3. When was it? 1, 2, maybe, that the curves hair project was introduced, using, not replacing yet, but an alternative method for hair grooming in Blender using curves. You can sculpt curves, which is amazing. However, that relies a lot on geometry nodes, and that it means that you have to learn geometry nodes. Well, this is hopefully going to solve that issue. So in your, let's do it in Blender 3.5 beta. So you see that it's also available in 3.5 beta. So if you go to the asset browser, which you can go if you press Shift F1 twice, because once is for the file browser and the second time it goes to the asset browser, you're gonna find a lot of cute little thumbnails here. This is because we are seeing all of the assets at once. When you click on hair, oh yeah, by the way, here you see all the other improvements. One, that you see all at once at the beginning, well, by default, and that the menus are padded correctly. So you see the essentials, which is basically what we are looking at here. You have hair, and then inside you have a bunch of categories or catalogs. The deformation ones, the generation, the guides, read, utility, and then write. So this is to actually change stuff in your geometry more than just getting some data, getting like the tip of the curves or getting like a random like clamps or the root of each curve. All these things that you would probably build yourself, this comes built in Blender. So how do you make this work? You can select any mesh. Let's say select a monkey here, and then I add a new curve. Fur, this is a new entry in the menu that it's next to the empty hair one. This empty hair makes, it's been available for a few versions already. It basically makes a hair object and it attaches the selected object, the mesh object, as a surface to that hair object. In this case, we do fur, and then we have a little furry, sort of like the quick fur operator, but in just in the menu, so it's easier to access. And in this case, you're gonna find how in the here on the side, you see all the modifiers that are now that are related to this. So you may recognize some of them, like freeze hair curves. Hey, it's here. Hair curves noise. Hair curves noise is this one over here. So by using the existing, that built-in modifier, like node groups, geometry nodes, node groups, you're gonna be able to build this. So I know nothing about this yet, so I can't really demo this properly, but I'm gonna ask the team. They're working on documentation for this, but maybe we can publish a video here to make this more, part of like the Blender fundamentals, but for hair, because some of them work like more visually than others. For example, hair curves, drag and drop, and then you have this modifier. Yes, but yeah, what now, right? I don't have anything. Yeah, well, because you need an object, or you need actually the guides first. So it is a something to learn, so there will be documentation for it. Don't worry. Okay, but anyway, this is a huge step in Blender development, because this means, it's not just about making those modifiers, those node groups that involve mainly Simon Thomas, and Daniel Bystedt, the geometry nodes team, and also people at the studio that have been testing this and making it nice and clear with all the settings that you will expect from hair grooming. But also this sets a precedent that Blender in the future could come with materials pre-set up, that so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want a glass material, or that you want a very specific, like a skin material, right? Procedural. So the idea with these built-in assets is that they are light, right? This is made with nodes. Actually, if you go to the node editor, you pretty much see that this is just a node group, right? You go in and you just see a bunch of nodes. But other than that, it's just Blender data. So it's not gonna make your Blender bloated with like multi gigabytes heavy. And the idea in the future is to include like materials or meshes, and the mesh is also a mesh, right? A mesh is super light, it's just a bunch of vertices. So if you have like a base mesh for like start to model to sculpt, we have those in blender.org/demo. it's a redirect to blender.org where you can have the, for example, the stylus-based meshes, the cube diorama materials from Simon, and a post library demo. But here you're gonna find more examples once the next Blender comes out. Okay, this is on studio.blender.org, but this is free to download. Anybody, it's free for everyone. If you look at it in incognito, you see that you can still download it, and yeah, you can still download it. Of course, it's just hosted here for convenience. Okay, what else? Oh, the UI asset list. I already mentioned this, so nothing new. The UI list for the asset libraries preferences. Let's switch topics a bit. I hope I explained everything. How's the chat doing besides loving this so far? This is from in Instagram and on TikTok. They do that a lot. I see that YouTube is doing that. Okay, next, let's talk about constraint. This is a fix, and also making it a bit more clear how the constraint maintained volume work. So if you work with metric units, it kind of made sense to have the factor basically of the maintained volume as a distance. However, most of the time well, not most of the times, it depends. Maybe you're working with different units, non-metric units. So now the value is not going to be marked as a distance, like in meters, centimeters. It's just going to be a factor, basically. And also the range was limited from 0.001 to 0.001 to 100. And that has been lifted. Well, the limit has been lifted. So in the UI, it's still going to be 100 max, but if you click on it and type manually values, you can go up to any levels in the any number in the maintain volume constraint. Okay, so the next section related to curves, it's a mix of everything. So first, the edit mode for curves is no longer experimental. This has been moved into general use, and many of the tools, like the transform tools, have been added. The selection tools and delete curve points are possible. So you have some basic transformation tools, selections like meshes, but very basic. However, this is for making hair, grooming hair. This is amazing. So you have sculpt, edit, select, remove, transform, grab, rotate, scale, and geometry nodes. So let's hope we get to see some cool hairdos soon. This commit just moves it out of experimental, but actually there is a ton of smaller commits by folk related to select, for example, more or less with the control plus and minus, remove, selection, delete operator for deleting, just a bunch of small commits about all the functionality that you would expect in edit mode. The quick for operator has been added to the add menu. That's what I just mentioned before, but it's using now the new hair system. Super neat. The other change has to do with visualization. Also, there is a new setting for displaying the curves cage. Cage, I don't know if it's the right name for it. It's just like an overlay of the, because in cage in modifiers means something else, right? It means like when the mesh has the modifiers applied, or maybe it's correct. Anyway, it's called cage overlay, and it's available in the overlays popover and their selection opacity. There you can see cage opacity, and you can tweak how strong is the overlay for the hair, basically. So it's just a slider with opacity, and you can turn it on and off. Blender is progressing way faster than I could have imagined a year ago. I'm so happy. Hey, nice to hear. Don't forget about the new code node docs button. No, I still have to get there. Okay. Small quality of life changes are small but really good. Yes, that quality of life improvements are sometimes bigger, even in just tiny things are bigger than anything else. And we should have like a quality of life day, I think. To only work on those. The other changes are actually more like draw point overlay in when you are in point selection mode. So you have multiple selection modes. It's just like fixes and improvements in that, except the one parameter that is being added to the core parameter fall off to the comb brush. So you can tweak the fall off or like the decay from in the comb brush. Let's see if there is a demo. Yep, here, curve fall off. And is there a video? No, but you get the idea. It's a similar fall off setting that is in the painting brushes or in sculpt brushes. Other than that, it's just a bunch of fixes in curves. In cycles, there is a good news for the AMD Vega users. The support has been re-enabled again. This was disabled for I think a week, 2 weeks maybe, because it was crashing with some changes. There are some internal changes that have been done in the principal BSDF node, for example, some renaming, some internal renames. So this is good hint. It's a hint of what it's to come related to principal BSDF. The people that compile Blender would be happy to know that CUDA 12 is now supported. So you can, if you're compiling, that is good news. Okay, let's talk about docs actually. So documentation, you know, performance, it's not only about meshes and nodes and stuff. Campbell made it so when you look up, and this is related to the what Eric was saying in the chat about node online manuals. Ever notice that in Blender, when you look up something in the manual, like right click this online manual, it always felt a bit sluggish to me. It was like, it wasn't instant. It was like, just open a browser, right? Well, now it feels instant. Why? Because of a performance improvement, which I didn't even know that where it would come from. I thought it was just heavy to load to open a browser. No, Campbell found out the code for it, the Python code for it was using a kind of a regular expression that took nearly half a second to open, but now is less than 10 milliseconds, so instant. Yay for that. Okay, so performance improvements in EEVEE for Apple users, and especially when moving around the scene. So how much faster it is? Apparently, in scenes like the Wanderer, the scene that it's in the demo, Blender.Today demo by Daniel Beisted, Wanderer, this one, that you can also download. This scene, it's now between 2 or 3 times faster on Apple Silicon-based GPUs. So by doing all this, it's cool to see Apple working on this kind of optimizations. I don't know exactly how it compares with how it used to be, but 2 or 3 times faster, always welcome. GPencil has a couple of fixes. One of them is the eyedropper color picker would have a different color than what you clicked. It was maybe something to do with color spaces, but it should work properly now. And the simplify sample modifier, now has a it comes with the UV information. It would throw away the the UV parameters. You wouldn't include them. Now that has been fixed. So yay for that. You don't lose your UVs in GPencil. The next change, let's move into the nodes area of Blender. First, what Eric just mentioned, the online manual entry that is available for many operators in Blender, like I show you, like you can click anywhere, just right click and click on online manual, or you can also press F1 with the mouse over the, well, anywhere. How I wish we had a dark mode in the documentation. Probably this is blinding manual. Lag camera? My camera is dying? What do you mean? It looks good here. I wish I could show you, but you're blue now. Blue is, your skin is blue? Wow. I mean, I wish I could show you, but I think the stream. Is it okay now? I hope it's okay now. It shows properly here. That maybe a minute ago, not anymore. Now it's okay. It's good right now. Cool. So strange. You see, computers go wrong everywhere. On Linux, on Windows, on everything, everywhere. Just computers being computers. Okay. Oh, maybe it's confused because of Blender and the online manual option is now available in Geometry Node. So you can right click on a node and you get the online manual option for it. Other than that, let's talk about geometry nodes. There is, well, actually, not many. If you do like Python stuff, like access certain attributes, the normal attribute has been removed. This is one of the last exceptions that was for like when moving from the old pre-fields system to the new one. That was one of the last, probably, I think it is the last attribute that was read-only, then it was marked as an attribute, but it's not really an attribute. So that's an internal change that has been done for making things more, generic. And an operator to wrap a modifier's node group. So this operator creates a new node group that contains the current node group and named attribute nodes to deal with the outputs. This saves the manual work when moving to a high-level modifier to the node editor for better procedural control. So it's in the modifier. Oh, create wrapper node group. Is it even there, exposed such a high level? Or is it? Interesting. Depends on the type of if it's an asset, maybe. Interesting. Okay. The next section is related to attributes. So in edit mode, you can now set an attribute with an operator. So you can select a bit of the mesh and set an attribute random, like whatever is active in your in the settings here. You can see. So let's see if I can make this larger. So if you set an attribute that's active in the sidebar in the mesh property settings, you can now go to mesh, set attribute, and manually set the active attribute. You can set a shortcut for it, like it's done in here, and you basically press the shortcut and you can set it. It's pretty straightforward. It's only showing one attribute. I wonder if it would make it too busy if the list was here, and then you can just keep this floating up here. So you have one selection, and then because you can move these panels, and they stay open while you change settings, and as long as you don't move the mouse away. So although it would be pretty special because we don't have many operators or any, can't remember one that has like a UI list in it. But yeah, it's pretty handy. The next change, it's a gizmo. So the Cage 2D gizmo, so the gizmos that work on the, like not in the 3D viewport, but in the 2D, like the image editor, the video sequence editor. Now you can press Shift to scale uniformly. This might be revisited because the Shift key is used or reserved for the precision mode. So if you want to have very precise resizing of your cage, I don't think we should be using the same shortcut for multiple or different operations. So this might be revisited. It was 6 days ago though. Other than that, I think that's pretty much for the gizmos. There is another fix for the dial 3D clip plane, the one that it has a circle, but it's just mainly just a fix. There's been a few fixes related to translations. So there is some settings in the physics that have been available for translation, and also for the vertex group lock operator. Now, more good news for Apple users. This is related to what I mentioned before. In Blender 3.6, Metal will be the default GPU backend when using Blender on a Mac. So 3.5 still has OpenGL. You can have to, well, I don't know if it's even enabled. It is present in the preferences, but in 3.6 it will be the default. Good for new defaults. The next change has to do with OBJ. There's two fixes. Well, more it's related, but it's more like a new feature. This is a fix. Apparently, sometimes it could happen that if you are importing some settings, importing OBJs, it would happen that some faces would be skipped in some cases due to some validation logic. Apparently, it has been fixed. And related to that, OBJ now supports polylines with more than 2 vertices, because according to the specs, OBJ supports this, but Blender just didn't. Only the first 2 vertices of each polyline were read and added as a loose edges, and it was failing when the texture coordinates were present even. So now support for the proper polylines has been added, but it is ignoring the texture coordinates. Ina says, I'm using macOS Intel. Will that be a problem? It's not going to be a problem. All these changes are only for the new Apple Silicon ones. Okay, Python developers. If you've been missing them, if you've been working on your add-on and you want to make it compatible with Metal, you were missing a few functions that are called Caesar functions, get, set, and test, that has been added. So you can now finish your add-on migrations to make them compatible with Metal, which is going to be the default, as we mentioned in 3.6. And this is what everybody's been waiting for, which is Sculpt vector displacement for the sculpting draw brush. Very exciting. Okay, excitement aside, vector displacement has been added to Sculpt mode out of nowhere. This change, this patch by Robin. I think there were some tests going around. This was inspired by right-click select. Look at that. You know, from 3 weeks ago. Now it was posted, it was reposted because this has been requested many times. And look at this beautiful state-of-the-art proposal in right-click select. You can do this kind of stuff. Well, now you can do that with Blender. So there is the pull request. Here has a bit more information about it. It was added 2 weeks ago. The patch, the pull request. And yeah, it basically allows you to use VDM maps that you can use to sculpt in any direction. So basically, if you have enough geometry underneath, it can move geometry in ways that it would be just so hard to do manually. So for example, these shapes like horns or ears, or basically sculpting geometry but not really adding geometry, it's using the existing geometry on top of your meshes. So we are going to get to see a lot of this coming into Blender soon, I assume. So a few limitations. If you open Blender from now on, all the textures by default are going to have clamping disabled. So it's okay, you're gonna work, your textures are going to work. However, if you use an older texture and you try to use it as a VDM map, you're gonna VDM, not VDM map, because it's map. It's like rip in peace now, VDM. You need to enable it. It's in the settings. It's a setting in the texture settings called vector displacement, and this is gonna enable or disable this feature. You have to also disable the clamping if it's enabled. However, that has been disabled by default. There's also some notes, a few things to consider when making VD maps. The UVs needs to stay intact for the bake mesh. So, for example, voxel remeshing can't be used to create VD meshes. When exporting a VD map, it should be in the file format OpenEXR for positive and negative floating point values. So the .exr format. Export resolutions can be 512 by 512 or lower even. EXR files can get very large, but VDM brushes don't need a high resolution. That's good to know. I would expect people going nuts with resolution. But 512 is pretty good. This setting, people are asking, how it go official so quick? Well, because the code was probably pretty well coded. Some features are more controversial than other. The main thing holding this back was the fact that Blender settings by default for textures were clamped, but not anymore. So I think here in the last note, Jeroen talked with Brecht and he said, okay, this patch can land in 3.5. This is 3.5, so Blender 3.5 is already gonna be quite a release, because it will include the real-time compositor plus the VDM. And Jeroen is here in the chat. He says, VDM Baker isn't finished yet. There is a node setup that will be shared that works in the meantime as a baking work around until the baker is finished. Amazing. Thank you, Jeroen, for dropping by. Jeroen is a developer that works at the studio and merged this by Robin. Okay. What else? Oh, the workflow improvements here that also committed by Jeroen a few hours ago. This was 10 hours ago, but this would be backported to 3.5, right? Where can I see the branches where this was? Because 3.5 went beta, but yeah, it has to be related to with VDM. Okay, in other news, also related to Sculpt, the mesh filter operator now has the redo or last operator or the adjust operator panel settings available, where you can repeat the last operator, but also you can change the iteration count to the filter. So if you're not happy with the applied settings, you can tweak it, and it would even store the event history. So, you know, the mesh filter depends on the position of the mouse. This should work, make it work correctly. And yeah, good news. Mesh filter operator can be tweaked. Okay, speaking of tweaking, not really related, but the light theme. Well, okay, let's talk about themes. The Blender light theme. Please raise your hands if you use this theme, because I know it's been broken. I had a task open for like a year assigned to me, so it's my fault. But the theme itself, it comes with Blender. It's something that I've been using for a back in the days. I've been using this. Oh, now I noticed. I saw a glitch. So I think there's something going on with because I'm using GPU to encode streaming. Is that okay? Did it? Okay, cool. Anyway, the theme is now working basically. The node editor had some inconsistencies. Like this text wasn't readable. The node type, the colors were not really consistent with the dark mode, and the Blender light mode and dark mode should be basically the same, just the light version, and there was some discrepancy with the colors of the different node types. The panels now also look like panels. Their selection, everything else should be the same. This list over here has been improved. The same with the asset here. This selections was also broken. So yeah. It freezes when you're messing with Blender. Okay, so interesting. Oh, now I'm blue. Wow. I see myself, I'm stuck now and I'm blue. Okay, so I'm gonna close Blender. I mean, who needs to have Blender open for interesting how it freezes. Wow. So interesting. I'm using OBS, latest graphic drivers, Blender 3.6 alpha. So what can possibly go wrong? Okay, and I'm on the most used operating system in the world, but things still go wrong. The next changes are just some UI tweaks. This is a fun one. There was an operator which was mentioning vertex keys. And what are vertex keys? Well, vertex keys is the old name for the for shape keys in Blender. If your legs, if your knees hurt, well, that's maybe because you remember the RVK and the AVK. What is that? The RVK, sorry for blinding you, I'm also got blinded. RVK is the relative vertex keys, then renamed to shape keys. This is back in the days of 2.3 and even before, where Blender looked like this. Peak UI design. However, the icons in the UI were super cool. This one is amazing. Yeah, the action editor, it was a guy running from something or somewhere. It was like being chased or something. Icons were much more fun back then. The game engine icon was a Pac-Man, purple, so we don't get chewed. But yeah, it's crazy. Next, no, I think that's it. The alignment of the panels of the menus with and without icons that I mentioned before, I like to mention because it shows the care by the developers. Because if you have a menu that sometimes is the entry, has like padding on the left, but some not, you would fix it by, I mean, if you don't think much about it, you just go fix it by going to that entry and then just adding padding to all the entries, right? But in this case, Julian made it properly. So basically, if any entry in the menu has, before building the menu, has an icon, then all the other entries without an icon are gonna have padding. So it's good to see, you know, when solutions like this are done nicely. And it's also a really nice way to learn code, right? Because you see it's like, such a simple solution. And then you go out to the code and then you see that there is just a Boolean property that has an icon or not. Then if there's an icon, set it to true. And then if if the icon is none and has an icon, then add blank one. Blank one is an internal name for icons, the empty icon basically. And last but not least, well, two options, actually one, USD improvements. Yes, USD shapes support by Charles Wardlaw. This commit adds the ability to import USD shape primitives. They are imported as Blender meshes using the USD API to convert so that they appear the same as they would in other applications. USD shapes are important in many more workflows, particularly in gaming, where they are used for stand-in geometry or for collision primitives. So those simple meshes that show you just like a bounding box for collisions, or stand-ins like proxies, but not like in the Blender proxies, but proxies. That's it. Shape primitives in USD. Oh, last one, actually, for Windows users. Windows can now span multiple monitors. So apparently it wasn't possible. I never tested it, but now you can have a window span. For example, if you have a multiple monitor setup, like one on top of another, of each other, or to the sides, you can have a window that spans all over. Nice. Who would work like this? I don't know, but now this should work. Cool. And that is it. These are the last changes that are included in Blender 3.5 and 3.6 as of now. So this change is actually from 5 days ago. So this probably made it to 3.5. Basically, all the links for this are in the description. If you look at the commit, and the commit was done 6 days ago, 5 days ago, then it very likely made it into 3.5. But also you can just download 3.5 and try it for yourself. Okay, let's try to answer some questions before I run out of time. This thread by Barf Garbage shouldn't wait anymore. So okay, let's go first. Pablo, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but you could do a better job of making Blender a better 3D software. Nice. And you're not doing that. It could be argued that Blender developers develop sculpt mode material assigned with brush. Even if only add subtract brushes, maybe also for contrast brushes. Thank you. That's a good way to start the Q&A section. So okay, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but you could do a better job of making Blender. Good news, I'm not making Blender by myself. You know, you are making Blender with this question and with the community. You are making Blender by reporting issues. Everybody here in the chat is making Blender by watching this, sharing the news, making tutorials, making documentation, reporting issues, just spreading the word, even for good or for bad. Everybody is making Blender. So as you notice, there are some amazing people that 2 weeks ago make a patch and is now part of Blender, and it's the title of this stream, and you can bet there is already in Blender BDM Sculpt. I bet there are tutorials already. Look at that. 1, 2. People that are already doing, well, no, these are old ones. But if you filter by date, I bet people are already using it. Like here, Blender Secrets, vector displacement. Look at that. People are already making. You see, these people are making Blender. It's not us. Developers are making Blender. And the community also makes it. So don't worry. Nice. Okay. Next question by Blend Creator. Hi, Pablo. Do you know if simulation nodes will be in Blender 3.5? No. 3.5 is already in beta. So what you see is what you get. Geometry and simulation nodes are not even in 3.6 yet. So no. And well, something has to be said actually regarding the amazing people at 80 level. They are awesome. You probably know them already, but they have amazing articles. They follow what's new in Blender and in the community everything that has to do with VFX 3D in general. They posted about the new 3.5 beta, and it was mentioned there that it would have simulation nodes. And I think they also posted something in social media that mentioned 3.5 simulation nodes. It's not their fault, and it's not anybody's fault. It happens that the way Blender develops, it's, you know, like now there is 3.6 alpha. So everything that it gets developed in Blender, you open Blender. Well, I'm not going to open it, but at the bottom you're going to see 3.6 alpha. And now I flickered again. Anyway, so whatever version the developer was using at the time of coding that feature, it's going to show down there. So when the simulation nodes builds were available, it happened to be in 3.5, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be part of 3.5, right? If the feature continues to be developed for 3.6 and 7, it's just using the latest Blender available at the time. So that's why it can be confusing for people that just follow social media, and then they see like, oh, simulation nodes, and then they look at the bottom and, oh, 3.5. Yeah, no, it's just the latest one. Next. Hola Pablo, saludos de Madrid. Hola Madrid. First of all, it seems that Yora and Graf is working on the retop overlay. No way. Someone making retop overlays as part of Blender and not just an add-on? Like for reals? Let's... Oh my gosh. It's a pull request. And it has... I want to see the overlay, please. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's very... At the moment... So it's like an offset, it's like a... It has like an offset property, and it basically just draws on top. This is awesome. So cool. Oh, anyway, sorry. You see? Blender is not made by... It's made by the community, by everybody. Any news about new modeling tools for retop? On a side note, it seems that Blender and Andrew Price's Donut have been named by the Everything Everywhere All at Once VFX team in the BBC because of what? Because of... No way. Did they mention Blender? Blender? The team's limited time, computer power, and expertise meant relying on tools such as Adobe After Effects and Blender to create the 2D effects. Holy crap. The graphic software tool Blender, alongside a YouTube tutorial and its capabilities, was instrumental in crafting the film's absurd black hole reveals. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. You see, they are making Blender too. By showing it here on a BBC article, they are making Blender because people are going to read this. Developers and 2B developers are also going to see this. And it's amazing. So cool. Anyway, thank you for mentioning this. I didn't even know. Any news about modeling tools for Retopo? No, I don't know about modeling tools. I didn't even know about this retopo overlay, but hopefully this inspires people to work on this. On these tools. Hi Pablo, would it be possible to have an index input exposing nodes with a list dropdown? Maybe it would be good a list for index input in nodes. Wouldn't that list would be like huge? I don't, or maybe I don't know if I'm following. It would be possible to have an index input exposing nodes with a list dropdown. I don't know if I'm following, but that would be either a very long list, or maybe an overlay would be better, and you can select from the UI or search for it. Okay, next. Barf Garbage says, "Ahoy there, matey. Over the weekend, I tried using application handlers to run an operation every time the frame changes. It works well in the viewport and when using viewport render animation, but not when actually rendering that animation. I tried both frame changing and frame change, the pre and the post. Do you have a take on this?" Yarun replied that you can check the Python channel in Blender chat. If you go to Blender.chat, there is in the home, actually, you can already go to Python. And here you can see people talking about Python stuff. And you can ask questions there. The next question, the last one by Young, says, "Hi Pablo, I hope you have a nice day. I do, except for the glitches in the live stream, but everything else is super nice. First of all, many thanks for your videos, so inspiring and informative. Thank you for watching them. I have a question about the asset manager, as I think there is some sort of flaw the way it works to import stuff in the scene. When we choose to append a collection asset, it doesn't really append the asset collection, but makes an instance. So we have to make the geometry real and clean the empty. But doing so, we lose the possible hierarchy, and the worst to me, we also lose all the animation data, especially drivers. I know that the way the instances are updated is under slow-paced discussion. But in the meantime, would it be possible to have a proper append option in the asset manager for collections, or at least the rename the button another way, so it's a bit confusing compared to actual appending from the menu? I guess the thing is, as you mentioned, like append, it is actually appending. So the data is local to your, the main difference between append and link is that append brings everything into your scene. However, it doesn't work as you highlight. It doesn't work the same as if you append from file append. So that should be fixed, either by fixing the file append or by fixing the operator. Maybe it could be, to be unified, it could be applied when you append. So the same way that you append it from file append, and then have a setting in the adjust last operator to make it behave like it does now, where it instances or not. So that way you have the best of both worlds. Otherwise, I see people could be also arguing that, hey, but I have a collection, I have all this geometry all like just all over the place, and if I want to instance that, I have to, well, I don't know, maybe it's not even, it's probably the same amount of work, right? Maybe it's not even that bad. Okay, this should definitely be unified, but there are ways. There are many ways, so maybe that should be discussed. Maybe it's good to make a post on DevTalk, or if you have a proposal already, on right-click select to unify that, because the team is working on the asset managers, you can see a lot these days. So yeah, maybe it's a good moment to discuss this. Okay, let's close all this and let's move into what's gonna happen next week? So next week is the 27th, is the last stream of February already. So next week we still are in 3.6 alpha, 3. Beta still gonna be beta, but it's nearly March, so I think we should start working. Actually, this week I'm gonna start working on the release notes for 3.5. Why are you so blue? Well, I don't know if now you're looking at the glitch, or you're looking at just the that I happen to have a light behind me. I tried to make a cool, you know, like a rim effect, but I think it's a bit much. I also have another light here that I could maybe make less. There you go. That was red. Maybe I have a little thing here. It's a bit less. Or I could just like make it, just turn it off completely. That guy. Oh my god, look at that. Oh, this is much cozier. Okay. Also, I don't have a... You're glitching so much. Look at that. Oh, there's something wrong with this. I think it's telling me to go home. I'm already home, OBS. Anyway, I also want to thank another... I hope the audio was okay. I'm using now a shotgun mic, so I don't have the microphone in front of me, and that was a suggestion by a user, a comment on YouTube last week. So I hope this worked out. It's much better this way. Okay, other than that, I think we are going to wrap it up, because in 7 days, in 1 week, we're gonna be doing this again. I have to go and do the live stream in Spanish now, so it's a whole complete other hour of glitches waiting for me. Wish me luck. Other than that, I think I'm gonna head out in the same way that I usually do. So watch your ear holes, because in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thanks everyone. Have a great week. I'll see you again next week. Same place and time for another episode of Blender Today Live. Bye. Ciao. Sayonara.